Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Enjoy. Brian Kelly met with the media yesterday, had his weekly press conference. And there are a couple things that I wanted to get to, one of which is I want to talk about big plays in the running game, but we'll talk about that in hour number 2. A couple things here, and he was adamant about the gradual development of some young players, and I think this is an interesting thing that is going to take shape over the next 3-4 weeks that Brian Kelly is paying attention to today.
Look, we got a lot of football ahead of us, right? This is an important week for us, as we continue to develop. But, after the bye week, welcome to the SEC. We go 7 weeks with bang, 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 straight of SEC competition. We're gradually, you saw Don McKinley, in action. You're going to see more guys that we're gradually bringing along to get involved in more action because the schedule obviously is going to be robust. So this has really been about building our football team, getting to know our team, know our strengths, know our weaknesses, the things that we have to be better at in all phases of the game. But at the same time, developing some of those younger players so that when we have to call on them, we can get the kind of play necessary to win SEC games.
There are a number of true freshmen that LSU is quite frankly going to play early and often the rest of the way. I mean, we saw early in the season P.J. Woodland out there at corner. You saw Caden Durham break out in the South Carolina game. Of course, Gabe Relaford has come on in the last couple of weeks. Don McKinley played last week. Deshaun Spears has played a good bit in the secondary as well. I think you're going to see some of Trey Green. And then potentially Xavier Atkins is going to have to play some at linebacker with Harold Perkins going out. So you're talking about 6, 7, 8 guys that you're going to see. I didn't even mention Ahmad Bro, who's going to play more than any of them. He's the starter at defensive tackle at this point. So there are going to be a lot of true freshmen that are going to play for LSU, and this is kind of the last one where you can afford a mistake here or there. I realize we'll talk about South Carolina over the next 4 days, and I realize that they have an offense that scored a ton of points, but they lost their first 2 games of the year, and if you lose to South Alabama, then what's the point of lacing them up for the rest of the games? I think LSU is going to be able to handle themselves this week. But the true freshmen are going to have to play, and you've got this week, and then you've got a week of self-evaluation as you enter the open date, and then you come back and you get ready for a really good Ole Miss team, and you're going to have a lot of these young guys play, and I think it's very, very important that they get a good number of reps coming up in the game on Saturday against South Alabama. One of those young players, not a true freshman, that got a lot of playing time in the game on Saturday and then started the opener before he got hurt was Kyle Parker, and he had his first touchdown back on Saturday on a gorgeous throw from Garrett Nussmeier, and Brian Kelly talked about that.
I've always said, how do you get these players confidence? They got to go make plays. Confidence comes with making plays. I mean, you could talk about confidence all the time, but he needed to go and make a play, and he made the play, and that was one of the worst dances that I've ever seen in an end zone. He looked like me dancing. So we're going to work on that next, but it was so good for him. He's worked so hard. He had the injury, kind of set him back. He had a great camp, and I thought he was poised to really break out, and then he had the elbow injury that kind of set him back. So I was really happy for him to get that catch, and I think that's going to really help him moving forward.
He really did have a great camp, and he stood out in a group, not with Kyron Lacey because he was pretty clearly at the top of the list, and then you saw C.J. Daniels that was good as well. But Hilton until he got hurt, but he was probably ahead of Aaron Anderson, of Xavier Thomas, and certainly of Shelton Sampson and Landon Ibieta. He did a really good job early in camp, and there's a reason why he was out there very, very quickly in the USC game. Of course, Hilton got hurt 2 weeks leading up, and he took those reps, but he earned that. And then he got hurt immediately, pretty much in that game. He's running a kind of a pick play route there in the first half, and hurts his elbow. But they like him, and I think there's more in the tank from Kyle Parker. Lacey's clearly number one, and I think we haven't seen all there is to see from C.J. Daniels to this point. He's going to be a really good player, but Kyle Parker, if it factors in here, made a really good play back in the game on Saturday. The diversity of the passing game and trying to get a lot of different guys involved, Brian Kelly enjoyed that.
Yeah, I think it's the nature of the offensive structure in terms of what we've done and how we've done it. I think Joe and Cortez has a large hand in the passing game in terms of making sure that if you're just focusing in on one guy, last year we had, obviously an alpha and, we had BT as well. This year, it can go to anybody. And now you add the tight end into the mix as your leading receiver right now. It's very difficult to defend us. And the backs are catching it for touchdowns, the tight ends, a number of the receivers. It's a pretty comprehensive passing game. I think we need Chris Hilton back. And this seems to be the week where we feel like we're going to get him back healthy. If we can add that vertical passing game, another element to it, I think it just makes it even better.
I agree with all this. If you want to just for a second put the passing defense aside, put the youth at defensive tackle aside, put the lack of production in the run game aside, those are all things that we have to talk about and we have talked about. But if you want to just bring the passing game to the forefront and you want to talk about this objectively, like they've got a lot of guys that are involved. They've got a lot of guys with a lot of talent. They've got experience. And they've got diversity as he's talking about. You got the pop pass that you're hitting to Xavier Thomas that he scores the first touchdown on. He mentioned getting the ball out to the backs in the backfield, and we know that Caden Durham can catch it and turn it up the field and make a play. We know that Kyron Lacey is a threat to go vertical, not down the field, but up in the air to make catches. He's a great athlete in that way. You know that Nussmeier's not afraid to take shots. You know that Hilton's got take the top off the defense speed. Like, I would like the offense to be balanced in terms of pass and run, but if you can have a passing game that is balanced, that helps offset the lack of a consistent running game. And LSU's got that. Like they can control the football with the passing game. There's less margin for error than in the run game, but you can control the football with the passing game. And LSU has done that in all these games. They controlled time of possession in a big, big way against South Carolina and UCLA. And in neither one of those games did they just run it down their throats. Now, Durham had 100 yards, no doubt, against South Carolina, which was great. But the day was won by the passing game, and that was the main pillar of their offense, and they still dominated time of possession because they're efficient in what they do, and it's not just one type of passing game. You can't just pin your ears back and come at Garrett Nussmeier because the backs are involved, because the tight end is involved, because they can hurt you with the screen game and they can hurt you with the horizontal game. They're good at throwing the football, and I think they're going to get better as Nussmeier gets more snaps, as Chris Hilton comes back, as Kyle Parker progresses. Maybe you can get Tradez Green and or Kamorian Pimpton involved. Like there's a lot there in the passing game that should be exciting. And Kelly talked about the fact that they're getting more pressure looks than they expected. They thought once they started to throw it that folks would back up, and they really haven't.
It's been a lot more pressure fronts than we expected. We thought we'd get teams backing off by this time, but they haven't seemed to do that, which, has worked out pretty good for us too. He's thrown the ball effectively. So, again, I think from our perspective, it's even changed our thought process a little bit in terms of, preparation is that, we have to even take another segment of practice and just have our run game focused on, more pressures, because if teams are going to continue to do that, we have to look at, what that run game looks like with even more hats.
It's a curious thing to me. Like, I would get teams just absolutely slamming the box full with some of the quarterbacks that LSU's had in the past that weren't as good, with some of the running games that LSU's had in the past that weren't as good. But the fact that Brian Kelly is telling us that consistently folks are packing the box and they're pressuring LSU's offensive front, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because trying to win on the outside consistently against these wide receivers seems like a fool's errand. But LSU will take it, and they're throwing for a lot of yards. Garrett Nussmeier leads the country in completions and is second in touchdowns. So you'll take that all day, every single day. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.